behind all of your emotions, there's a story that you're telling yourself or is being told to you. So for example, when I was growing up, it was, oh, if you're anxious, you just need medication, instead of what is your anxiety telling you? And that anxiety was telling me that I didn't feel safe in my environment. I didn't feel, emotionally safe. There was a lot of reasons behind that anxiety. And so if we can understand, same thing with anger, sadness, fear, depression, even, like, what is the story behind the emotion, that's actually going to help us to move through those emotions, and also helps us to remain objective. Because when we're in it, it's like, it is very hard to stay objective with what's going on around us. But if we know, for example, postpartum, a lot of the emotions we feel are simply because of hormones, and they're very radically changing hormones that we have little to no control over, except for nourishing our bodies, getting really good sleep. There are things we can do to feel better. We can't necessarily control how we feel because it's controlled by our emotions. So if I were to tell myself in that situation, I'm losing my mind, I'm never going to get better, I'm blah, 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 then that's going to create a very different picture in my head than what I'm actually going through. And so, but if I tell myself, you know what, this is hormones, this will pass, I will feel better, I will be getting sleep at some point in the future, then all of a sudden I can shift the story to a less powerless one. You might relate to this, but I remember when God really peeled back the layers on some big anger for me. And I just had to feel it. I just had to feel it for like 2 solid years. And I hated every second of it, but it was good for me. I needed to learn how to feel it. The story that I was telling myself was anger to me in my story, in my head, meant like violence. It meant a lack of safety. It meant emotional harm. It meant, like, I had a lot of negative views of anger because that's really only how I saw it used in my home. You know what I'm saying? There was never a conversation about anger. It was never like, oops, I blew it. Let's, figure this out. So my story about the anger that I was feeling actually led me to feel unsafe feeling the feeling of anger. Does that make sense? Because it's like, oh, that equals emotional unsafety. So I had to learn how to like rewrite the story of what anger was telling me. Like, no, I'm safe in my body. What is anger? What is anger trying to point me to? Like, what is the thing that it's trying to tell me? Because if we can understand that, then one, it takes the judgment and the shame out of our experience. Like, I'm feeling this anger, and God says not, God doesn't say not to be angry. He says, in your anger, don't sin, which is different, right? And I personally believe we can actually sin against ourselves and God by not having a healthy expression of anger. When we shove it down, where does it go? It either explodes or it implodes, right? And so when we begin to really like zoom out on that emotion and be like, okay, why am I feeling this emotion? If I'm feeling anger because I'm in pain, then I can take the judgment and the shame out of the anger, because that's just the front emotion. So I wanted to just kind of present that idea of, the story of your emotions,